This is a video on how to complete the Basline Observation Collection Data form and align it to the Student Engagement Rubric. My name is Samantha Reichert, and I am a 6th grade Language Arts multi-classroom leader at Ranson IB Middle School. You are watching this video if you will be attending our February ILT meeting to collect baseline data on overall classroom engagement levels across the school. To best be prepared for this video, please print out a copy of the Student Engagement Rubric or have it up on your screen for easy access, and also a copy of the Baseline Observation Collection Data form. This one you will need to have printed out so that way you can practice live. During this video, we will review the 4 steps of the No-Nonsense Nurturing Framework. We will understand categories and components of the Student Engagement Rubric. We will understand components of the CT3 Baseline Observation Data Collection form. We will practice using the walkthrough guide. And finally, we will align our results of the baseline with our Student Engagement Rubric. The No-Nonsense Nurturer Framework is a 4-step model. The first step of the model are clear directions using the MVP, or Movement Voice Participation format. We give clear directions to our scholars so that way they know exactly what is expected of them. We follow our directions up quickly with narrations. Narrations allow scholars to know that the teacher is watching, following up with expectations, and also provide another opportunity for scholars who might not have heard or understand the directions the first time to quickly get on task. When 100% of our scholars are following the directions, we provide a positive consequence using a class-wide incentive system. For scholars that are still struggling to follow directions, a negative consequence using the consequence hierarchy should be implemented. Last, but most important, in the 4-step model are strong relationships. Teachers have to build strong, natural, true, and relevant relationships with scholars for any type of high-quality education and learning to take place. The first thing we are going to talk about is the Student Engagement Rubric. We are going to use this rubric to see where our teachers fit. Ranson IB Middle School has a goal for the 2015-2016 school year of having 100% of teachers rated on task according to the Student Engagement Rubric. The Student Engagement Rubric has 5 overall ratings with 3 categories within each rating that we will evaluate. We are going to look at the overall classroom engagement level, the teacher use of the no-nonsense nurture strategies, and the scholar responses to the no-nonsense nurture strategies. Starting with the end in mind, we are going to review the Student Engagement Rubric first. Please have a copy printed out next to you or pulled up next to your screen so that way we can review together. Up at the top, you see the important notes and directions we will be following and how we align our walkthrough baseline data to this rubric. In the black bar on the left, it tells us the engagement level of the classroom. For this example, we will be looking at the first of the 5 categories, which is a disengaged classroom. The engagement level descriptor is located here in the first gray bar. Then we look at the no-nonsense nurture strategies in the first white column. Here we see outlined the directions, narrations, incentive and consequences, and evidence of relationships. We will be looking to see at how both teacher and scholars respond to the use of the no-nonsense nurture strategies. We will take our base collection data form and first look to see how the teacher is using the no-nonsense nurture strategies. In this example of disengaged, we see that the teacher is not giving clear to any directions. The teacher does not use the MVP format, struggles to get attention of the scholars, and cannot keep it. We see that the teacher does not provide narrations, refer to an incentive system, or provide clear consequences. As it is stated here, consequences might be given, and when they are given, they're either nagging or pleading. We also see that a teacher struggles to build relationships with the students. Separately, we will look at how scholars respond to the teacher's use of the no-nonsense nurture strategies. If we look in the scholars column for disengaged, we see that even if a teacher gives direction, these scholars disregard them. We see that the scholars are not motivated by the teacher's narrations. We see that if incentives are given, it just seems to roll off the scholar's shoulders. We see that they disregard consequences, and not only do they not have a relationship with the teacher, but they exhibit constant actions of disrespect towards the teacher. We will continue to look at the next 4 categories of the No-Nonsense Nurture rubric. The second of the 5 categories is ritual compliant. Please take a moment to read the engagement level descriptor located in the gray bar. As you see in this engagement level, 75 to 80% of scholars are on task. We will be getting those numbers through our baseline walkthrough form. Again, we see how the teachers and the scholars respond to the use of the No-Nonsense Nurture strategy. Please take a moment to read through this slide. As you can see, we are seeing that teachers and scholars are using and responding to the No-Nonsense Nurture framework. We may see that the teacher struggles to remember all parts of the MVP directions, but gets most of them. We see that 75 to 80% of the scholars consistently get on task the first time directions are given. Under narrations, we see that teacher uses narrations and that scholars respond for most of them. For incentive system, it is in place. We can see it on the board or see it on the walls, but the teacher really isn't using it strategically. We see that the scholars know that it's there, but aren't used to it being in use. For consequences, we see that they're given, but might not be written down, recorded, or in effectiveness. For relationships, we see that they're built with most of the scholars, but there's still work we can do. The third of the 5 categories is on task. Ranson IB Middle School has a goal for the 2015-2016 school year of having 100% of classrooms rated on task via the Student Engagement Rubric by the end of the school year. Please pause the video to review the descriptors for the engagement level, the teacher use of the No-Nonsense Nurture strategies, and the scholar's response to the use of the No-Nonsense Nurture strategies. Next up is active participation. Please pause the video to review the descriptor for the engagement level, the teacher's use of the No-Nonsense Nurture strategies, and the scholar's response to the teacher's use of the No-Nonsense Nurture strategies. As you can see, we are progressing in our strength and use of the No-Nonsense Nurture framework, and we are getting more scholars percentage on task. Last and most importantly is the 5th of the 5 categories, which is transformative engagement. Please pause the video to review the descriptor for the engagement level, the teacher's use of the No-Nonsense Nurture strategies, and the scholar's response to teacher's use of the No-Nonsense Nurture strategies. Now we will review the baseline observation collection data form. This form will be used when we do our walkthroughs. Please have a copy printed out and by your side so we can review together. This form has a lot of letters. At the top of it, there is a key that tells you what each of them means. For our purpose, we are just going to be focusing on the MVPs, N narrations, C for consequences, R for relationships, and the number of students off task. The first thing you do when you walk into a classroom is count the number of students present. If scholars enter or leave during your observation, you do not change this number. When a teacher provides a direction, we will record it up here in the MVP slot. If the teacher gives the movement, the voice, and the participation, we will record it in the appropriate category. If a teacher provides a direction and fails to say one of the M, V, or P parts, we will record only the parts that were given. After a teacher gives a direction, we will look down the column and tally the N for narrations, C for consequences, R for relationship moves, and the number of students off task. When we have finished with the form, we'll record any notes, strengths, deliverables, or needs. These do not need to be long, written-out explanations. Rather, they are simple jots that you will use to remind yourself when you are aligning your data form to the Student Engagement Rubric. We are in class, and for this example, we are going to say that there are 29 students present. This is the first thing we do, record the number of students in class. Then the teacher gives a direction. In your seat at a level 0, take out your notebooks. We will record it in the appropriate MVP slot at the top. Underneath this category, we are then going to tally the N for narrations, C for consequences, R for relationships, and scan the classroom for number of students off task. The teacher says Sarah is in her seat, Jerome is 0, and Raven is taking out her notebook. We will tally 1, 2, 3 narrations given. We see that Sarah then gets out of her seat and goes to the front, but even though it was a direction to be in your seat, the teacher does not give a consequence. We then hear the teacher say, Isis and Imari, the expectation was to be level 0. This is your verbal warning. So we see there was an opportunity missed when the student was out of their seat. We will record an O for opportunity, but the teacher did give 2 consequences for the 2 talking. We will tally 1, 2 for the scholars talking. We see the teacher then go next to the scholars talking, kneel down and say, I care about you girls too much to not do this work. Quickly take out your notebooks. Then we see a scholar in the back, obviously ill, but the teacher never goes around that student. For the relationships, we will tally the fact that the teacher attempted to build up the relationship or keep it strong with the 2 girls, but we will put an O for the opportunity missed with the 6th scholar in the back. Then we quickly scan the classroom. The teacher is now given a clear MVP directions, given 3 more chances through the 3 narrations, gave consequences. We know that all students know they should be in their seat at level 0 and taking out their notebook. We scan the room and we see 2 more students talking, 1 student out of their seat, and another student staring out into space with no notebook on. Down here we're going to record that 4 students are still off task. The teacher quickly provides the next set of directions. In your seat at a level 0, turn and provide your partner your notebook. We're going to record the MVP directions in the next column. Remember, any narrations, consequence, relationship moves, and student off task, we will record in the column below it. The teacher narrates 3 scholars, so we tally them there. The teacher then gives a consequence because Jamari starts talking. Teacher says, Jamari, the expectation was level 0. This is your verbal warning, and records it. 2 more girls, Isis and Isaiah, begin talking, and the teacher ignores them. We will record 2 O's for opportunities missed. The teacher is at the front of the room and ready to give her next set of directions and does not provide any relationship moves. We will leave that blank. We scan the room and we see that 1 scholar is out of their seat and 1 scholar is talking quietly to their partner. We will record that 2 scholars are still not following directions. You will continue to fill out the form this way. If a teacher provides MVP and you fill out the narration, consequence, relationships, and off task, but the teacher does not give another MVP, then for every minute, scan the room and count the number of students off task. This is especially important if the teacher gives directions for work time and scholars work for the next set of minutes. Every minute you look to see which scholars are not following the initial teacher's directions. After we're done with this form, let's see what we jotted down. We saw that the teacher can't get at the back of the room due to seating. This is important to note because this can help the teacher strengthen and build more relationships and hold students accountable. We also see that the teacher has a strong teacher voice, obviously uses scripted MVP directions, and narrates 3 after every MVP. Great teacher moves here that need to be noticed. One thing that we did see, though, was that the teacher does not consistently provide consequences to every off-task scholars. We're going to jot this down as a need that the teacher will have. Now we are going to practice using the Basline data form, watching a video. Now that we have reviewed the Basline walkthrough data form, we will practice by completing the form while watching this video. Remember to record the number of scholars present first. Then, listen for teacher directions, narrations, consequences, and relationship moves. Record directions in the MVP column and track the teacher's use of the no-nonsense nurture strategies below that column. As teacher provides narrations, consequences, and relationship moves, tally this under that MVP column. For directions, narrations, consequences, or relationships, record an O for opportunity. After the video, we will align your walkthrough data form to the one I completed. Remember to scan the classroom every minute to count the number of scholars off task. Are you ready? Take a few moments to finish completing your baseline data walkthrough form. Make sure to jot down your notes, strengths, or needs at the bottom so that way you can use them when we turn it into the scoring on the Student Engagement Rubric. Now that you have finished up your baseline walkthrough data form, let's compare. What is the first thing you have to do when conducting a baseline? That's right, you're going to count the number of scholars present. I know in the video it might be a little difficult, but still do your best. In this video, I counted 19 scholars present, so I put a 19 on the number line. The first set of directions comes in at us really fast, and it was long. Could you get it all? When a teacher gives lengthy directions, I put dots in the middle and just try to listen and jot down the most important parts related to the MVP. Here she gave us, you need a packet, book, writing utensil, You read at 0 or packet at 0, Half of you will take a quiz. When it's done, the other half will take a quiz. That's a lot of directions. For our purposes, we just write out the most important part. The most important part for here was the voice level at a 0, and the participation was to read or complete the packet. She did not give a movement direction for us. Now we listen for narrations. She narrated one scholar, so we tally 1. Looking around at the number of off-task scholars not at a level 0 or quickly getting to reading or completing the packet, I counted 5 scholars off-task. No consequences were given for scholars not actively following the directions, so I put 5 O's for opportunities in the consequences. Then, the teacher gives another direction quick. If you have a hood or a hat on, take it off. We enter that in a new MVP column with only the pertinent parts present. We see one scholar not following the direction, so we put a 1 in the off-task or OT spot. No narrations, no consequences were given. Only one opportunity to provide a consequence, which was not given. We were then given a few times with no direction. We needed to be actively looking for scholars not at level 0 reading or completing the packet. We need to assume that they were to be in their seats. We have 3 narrations here, but no consequences for the 8 or so off-task scholars. No directions are given, so we continue blank in the next column. In the next minute, we hear her give 2 narrations, but no consequences for the 7 or so scholars off task. Our next spurt of talking comes. In the Lightning Thief, you must finish Lightning Thief by the end of the week. So if you are behind, today you will do a big chunk with your packet. But these are not directions, so we do not complete them in that column. Scholars should still be at a level 0, reading the Lightning Thief or completing the packet. So we see that there are no narrations, and there are still 7 or so scholars off task with opportunities for consequences that are not given. Then she says, when I put a computer on your desk, look up front in red at the quiz, Only do questions 1 through 10. When finished, log out, close it, complete the packet and read. When done, complete station work. This is a lot of directions. We only put what goes into the MVP format, so really we only have complete 1 through 10, log out, close it, complete packet and reading, then station work when done. That was the end of our baseline and we walked out. So now that we are done, the first thing we do is calculate the percentage of off-task scholars. We add up the number of times we counted off-task scholars. I counted 5 times. So I'd add up the 5, the 1, the 8, the 7, and the 7. That is 28. I multiplied the number of scholars present, which was 19, by the minutes I was in class, which was 5 minutes. So 19 times 5 is 95. I then divide the amount of off-task by the number of scholars, which would be 95 divided by 28. That gives us 0.29, which we multiply by 100, and we see that we have 29% of our class was off-task in the baseline. We put that here in this section. Now that we have this data, take a look. What notes, strengths, and needs did this teacher have? I look on this form, and I see that she narrates frequently. This is going to be a strength. She also has great teacher voice. But looking on this paper, we see a need for complete MVP directions and following up on the opportunities to provide consequences. On notes, I might write seating arrangement as she wasn't able to get her body through all the parts of the classroom. Take a look at your baseline form and compare it with the one that I collected. What was similar? What was different? What questions or comments do you still have? In the next slide, we are going to take this baseline collection data form and we're going to translate this data into her on the Student Engagement Rubric. Now we are going to align the baseline data to the Student Engagement Rubric. Remember to calculate the percentage of off-task scholars by multiplying the number of scholars present by the amount of time you were in the class. You then divide that by the sum of the number of off-task scholars. Multiply it by 100 to get your percent off task. To get your percent on task, you will subtract that number by 100. Consider the teacher use of the no-nonsense nurture strategies and the scholar's response of the no-nonsense nurture strategies separate. Teacher might fit into different ratings for different categories. Students might fall into different ratings for different categories. They do not have to be the same. I circle each section that applies, and then I average to find the overall engagement level. Now we are going to align the baseline to get our Student Engagement Rubric results. Remember, in the rubric, we are looking at the teacher's use of and scholar's response to the no-nonsense nurture strategies of directions, narrations, incentive and consequences, and relationships. First, we are going to look at how the teacher used these strategies. Looking at the rubric, we see that the teacher is at disengaged for directions. The teacher is not using precise directions. Some parts are there, but it's hidden in a lot of the words. For narrations, we see ritual compliance. The teacher narrates frequently. However, we cannot get higher than ritual compliance because the narrations are not used strategically to get scholars back on track and to encourage other scholars to do the same work. The narrations are being done just to be done. For incentive and consequences, we're at disengaged because there appears to be no incentive system present, and we see no consequences were given throughout, even though several opportunities arose. For relationships, we are at ritual compliance because you see the teacher doing certain relationship looks and moves, like when she moved the scholar to the front to get the pencil. Now we are going to look at how the scholars responded to. Remember that this is a separate column on the Student Engagement Rubric. Even though the teacher was disengaged in her directions, the scholars were having ritual compliance. Whenever she would give a direction, only 5 to 8 scholars would be off task. This direction in and of itself is giving us at least 75% of scholars follow the directions the first time they're given. However, if you look at ritual compliance, you see that the scholars are easily distracted or get off task. For narrations, the scholars are responding as ritual compliance. They hear her, she's giving them 75% respond. We still have that large chunk who don't. For the incentive and consequences, we're at disengaged because they were not present or visible. And for relationships, the scholars are at ritual compliance. They respect her, but are they challenged to do that high level of work? Are they saying that class is challenging and welcoming? Probably not. Now that we have this, we are going to look at what is the overall classroom culture. Because we have 29% of scholars off task, that means only 71% were on task, which means we can only be disengaged. To move up to ritual compliance, we need at least 75% of scholars on task during the entire baseline. At certain parts, we had at least 75% off task, but when we did the overall average, unfortunately, we did not have 75% total on task. So using our baseline, we've seen that the teacher's Student Engagement Rubric results is at disengage. Now that we've reached the end of our video, here are the next steps. Please review the forms that we used today, which are the baseline data collection form and the Student Engagement Rubric. Send any and all questions about how to complete the forms to me, Samantha Reichert. Come to our Ranson IB ILT meeting in February to assist in baselining all of our classrooms. and contact our principal, Miss Erica Jordan Thomas, in her email with any questions or feedback. Thank you so much for watching,